Matt Lockwood, Simon Richards. Richards not for position. Lockwood will be in the 7th position, chasing down Scott McLaughlin, who continues to move forward from his 11th grid after an 11-play finish. Richards steps out. There's Andy Knight now. Where is Knight?
Looks like he's actually trying to regather, maybe from a half spin.
Martin Short off, damage to the left front corner of the zone Ford.
So that's 4 or 5 count for the no splitters for those guys that weekend. Either way, he's gone a long way off.
Now, where was Andy Knight? He was back in 22nd, so maybe that gamble going to the wet tyres hasn't worked. So there's Craig Baird.
There's another man who's been filled right back. There's a lot of damage to the side of that car.
Oh, big time.
An awful lot of damage to it.
He was battling with Martin Short for about the 15th position. So definitely damage to the right side of the United Video Ford.
Oh, gosh, that's heavy damage in that as well.
Both doors still. Here's the peak antifreeze replay. Oh, Short down the inside of Craig Baird.
And that's the problem. These guys just outbrake themselves and in they go. So that's not a good result for either of these guys.
Under brakes down into 1. Martin Short gets it wrong.
Oh, man, that's a big hit. Whatever Martin Short was thinking, only he will know.
So 2 of the championship contenders in the wars. Look at the impact there, down off the end of 1. Lots of damage to the right side of the United Video Ford.
But he just come from nowhere. Look, everybody else got the brake lights on. Man, that is a violent hit in real time, isn't it?
That is just violent, as you said, Mark, in real speed. Well, how has this championship changed? We've had 2 of the championship contenders in the wars in race number 2. Fogg with a mechanical issue. He is not yet back to the pits, and as we've just seen with Craig Baird, who was battling for 15th, he made the gamble going on to wet tyres, involved in an incident there with Martin Short, and he's back in the 19th position.
Gillette Motorsport and our friends at Citizen Watch.
So there's Angus Fogg continuing to limp back around. Is that a gearbox issue? I thought it, when we heard it earlier on, Mark, that he was searching for gears.
Something that you can actually hear something mechanical flapping around or whatever it happens to be.
Still got drive.
Could actually be maybe a broken axle. Something, whatever it happens to be, he's not going at full speed. And the beneficiary about all this is Johnny McIntyre and how his fortunes have changed.
Well, Fogg's going to continue on. He did not pit.
He's got to finish. He's got to keep finishing the circulating. No matter what happens, he's still going to get some points. So put in the old abacus here that he finishes 20th.
So Angus Fogg going in at the start of the weekend at a 32-point lead. He won race number 1 to lead by 47 over Craig Baird. And a mechanical issue. It's the driveline issue. I'm not too sure. Just take a listen to this, Mark. Definitely something rattling around. Is it maybe a drive shaft?
Now, if it's a drive shaft, there'll be no drive at all. If it was actually a broken axle, though, albeit very hard to drive, it'll still be driving on one wheel. So certainly a mechanical issue of some description. He's got to keep circulating, because if he still finishes in the 20th spot, then he'll only be 11 points off the lead of Johnny McIntyre. So the championship...
It'll still definitely be game on for the final.
Will be. Now, this man, when he comes to lap Angus Fogg, you can't help but feel he may have a little bit of a smile. But, of course, when he looks in the mirror, he sees Eddie Bow, and right on top of Eddie Bow is Andy Booth and Wade Henshaw. So still a lot of racing to be had yet. And, of course, if these guys catch Angus at the wrong part of the track, then all of a sudden this 1.5 second deficit that Johnny McIntyre's got over these guys can be eaten up in the blink of an eye.
Fastest car on track is Andy Booth right now, 136.82, and he is absolutely mowing down Eddie Bell, who in turn is starting to catch John McIntyre. Bell was 4 tenths quicker than McIntyre in the last lap. He is really trying hard in the independent Fisheries Ford.
Exactly what I was mentioning. Now, let's have a look here. Johnny McIntyre, Angus Fogg, smart enough to get right out of the way. Certainly doesn't impede any of the guys' progress.
So by our equations at the moment, with Fogg limping around in 20th, if he can finish there, he would be 11 points behind the new championship leader, John McIntyre. As Andy Booth goes to work on the back of Eddie Bell, under brakes down into turn number 1, and you can just see there is a little bit of rain starts coming back in over Hamilton.
Now, is it possible that Eddie Bell's actually on wets, Andy Booth's on slicks? If so, at this part of the track, if that happens to be the case, Eddie Bell will have the advantage. Get to the dry packs, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 corner turns. Advantage will go to Andy Booth. I'm just assuming that could be a possibility, but
just a light rain shower over the top of the racetrack at the moment. John McIntyre continues to lead. Booth again went faster on the last lap of 1:36.2. He was 6/10 quicker than John McIntyre. But going back to the race leader, Mark, I mean, a couple of rounds ago, McIntyre was 100-odd points out of the championship lead, and I think many had probably written his chances off, but they certainly didn't. And you read all their press releases and talk to the boys, they had never given up through this entire championship. Boy, they've had some ups and downs.
Certainly backed themselves, haven't they, all the way through, and they had a few issues to go with it, but saying that, with a couple of laps to go, Eddie Bow and Andy Booth are actually closing it. Wade Henshaw seems to drop back a bit, but I did see him be rather aggressive. There's Booth, you're talking about being aggressive under the concrete walls, but Henshaw did hit the curb quite hard going through the chicane on that lap, so he's dropped right back. Booth has just given the concrete walls a bit more respect than he did a couple of corners before.
You just see from those front-on shots of Eddie Bell, he's got some leaves and some material built up in the front air dam of the Independent Fisheries Board. I don't think it's enough.
No, the saving grace here, Jamie, is it's quite cold. The conditions we're experiencing at the moment. Eddie Bow certainly trying to apply the throttle. Car not quite ready for it, so the back steps out.
There's Andy Knight about to go down a lap, and that last lap for the top three was 2 seconds slower than their previous lap, so it's definitely a lot more slippery out there as Knight pulls over and lets the leaders through.
Yep.
So John McIntyre, Eddie Bell, Andy Booth, Wade Henshaw sideways out of 2. So was Andy Anderson in behind. There's another peak antifreeze replay. Eddie Bell grazing the wall with the left rear.
Timed it to perfection. Mate, they're actually getting the airborne coming off the curbs now, so the dry line is certainly installing a bit of confidence in these guys and their machinery. Here's the man at the moment. He's just taken over the championship lead by what we calculate. So it'll probably be 13 or 14 odd points.
Angus Fogg has slipped back to 21st, so another gain there for John McIntyre.
It's actually a huge gain for John McIntyre because the last race for the NZV8s is going to be an accumulation of all the points added together. Fastest man starts from the front, not the reverse grid race like we've seen before. So Johnny McIntyre, if the race continues the way it is, he's going to start on pole. This guy will probably be middle of the field, but just listen to it. Not getting any better, that we do know.
Yeah, well, Angus Fogg's last lap was a 2:23. So he's just trying to salvage something out of this race. He's Paul Manuel, he's carrying some damage to the right front corner of the Oryx Holden. Storming drive though, he is up into the 8th position, having started right back from the tail of the field after that race 1 penalty. Eddie Bell right there with John McIntyre. Again, that last lap was 2 seconds slower than what they've been doing. Eddie Bell was a shade quicker, and Andy Booth's actually dropped off the back of these two now. This is another peak antifreeze replay. Tim Edgell and Paul Manuel.
That's a bit of what's coming through into the chicane. We know
see that guard flapping around on the Oryx Holden. These two had a dispute in race number 1, of course, right at the start. And, Paul Manuel was adjudged to have been the cause and copped that penalty, as we said. This is a good return too for Eddie Bell. He's had such a disastrous championship, but he loves getting around this place. He obviously likes the racetrack here in Hamilton.
He's made the connection back with the car again. That is, we haven't seen all championship. 2 or 3 corners to go.
This is the final lap run. Last lap board was out at the start of the previous lap.
No, Johnny Mac won't do anything silly at this point. Corners, here we go.
This is Gene Rollinson slowing before the finish line.
He might actually just park that thing, wait for Johnny McIntyre to go past, and then go past the finish line, so he doesn't have to worry about doing another lap.
John McIntyre takes the victory and the championship lead. Eddie Bell second, Andy Booth third. Lost a little bit of ground in the last couple of laps. Wade Henshaw finishes in the 4th position. Excellent result for Andy Anderson in 5th. And we're just waiting for Angus Fogg to crawl across the line, but we think he is 21st. John McIntyre, the new championship leader. Angus Fogg crosses the line now in 21st position. A disaster for the LG Ford and the now former championship leader. There is your new championship leader, John McIntyre. So John McIntyre, with his victory in race 2, takes over the championship lead now from Angus Fogg. Eddie Bell finishing second, Andy Booth third, followed by Wade Henshaw, Andrew Anderson, Matt Lockwood. Fantastic 6th place finish ahead of Scott McLaughlin, Paul Manuel, Tim Edgell and Nick Ross.
Well, the obvious question, Foggy, what happened?
Unfortunately, we've lost second gear, and for some unknown reason, and it's sort of chewed up the rest of the gearbox as it's gone through. So we sort of had third and fourth to play with, and lots of horrible noises. So just tried to limp around to the finish and see what happens in the last one.
You've had a few little minor scares throughout the season, but you've stayed in front of the title for 99% of the time. How does it feel with the race to go to lose that top spot?
Well, it feels pretty stink, really. You know, it's been good to be leading, and we've done a reasonable job. We've obviously had a few little dramas, but so's everybody else. Something like that shouldn't happen. You know, we pride ourselves on the mechanical preparation of the car, and it was all gone through as it normally is before the meeting, and it's just let go on us.